welcome everyone to the Game Audio Implementournament 2024. I'm super excited to be your host today, and with me I have Avishan Karvan, and he will be taking care of your technical needs today for how to get started with this project. And yeah, we will help you to dive right in after this or this week, or if you want to procrastinate right at the end. There will also be another stream like this with Avishai, and it will be on the 30th of September and will be a lot more technical. So yeah, today we're going to jump into all the basics. But first off, let's take another look at the incredible trailer that Lewis Thompson made. What is the Implementournament? This is it right here.
Calling all game audio sound designers, we have a new contest just for you. Get ready for the Implementournament. We've built a custom Unreal Engine 5 video game just for you to design and implement your own sound effects. You'll have 1 month to design and integrate audio into the game, and our favorite entry will be awarded the Kilohertz Ultimate Bundle, as well as every Kilohertz content bank. That's not all. We'll also be awarding 5 Airwiggles members the Community Helper Award. That's 5 prizes of €200 store credit each to spend on any sound library bundles from We Love Indies. You can win these prizes by helping other contestants by answering their questions and providing feedback over on airwiggles.com. All of the information you need can be found in the new Game Audio Implementournament space. And we've also set up the Tournament Hub, where users can hang out and help each other as they work on their entries. On top of all of this, if you're missing Airwiggles Audio Conference, we'll also be featuring some free live talks about interactive audio on Airwiggles over the course of the contest. The Implementournament was put together by Avishai Caravan and John Kelleher, who have both worked super hard to bring this competition to life. So, if you're a game audio wizard, or if you just like to start learning, this is the tournament for you. Submit your finished game by the 9th of October, and we'll announce and showcase for winning entries live on YouTube. I'm sure you have loads more questions, and we have all the answers over at airwiggles.com/tournament. Good luck and have fun implementing audio.
Ooh, I get goosebumps every time I watch this. So exciting. If you have any questions throughout this whole live stream, then just pop them in the chat and I will highlight them and then bring them up to Avishai whenever appropriate. Or if it doesn't really fit in with what we're currently doing, then we will answer it at the end, and it will literally show up on screen like this. Yes, we can come back to the video later because it will be recorded and on YouTube. So yeah, there we go. Right. Without further ado, Avishai, I'll hand you the wheel, and you can start off by giving us a little bit of an introduction about yourself.
All right, will do. Hey everyone, welcome. Doing this speech again for the second time this evening, so I guess it'll be hopefully a bit better. Welcome. I'm super excited for this to start. I've been thinking about it for a really long time, and I'm really grateful to Greg and Lewis and everyone else that's been a part of putting this together, and it's finally starting. So hopefully I'll give you guys a good kickoff to the event, and yeah, let's get into it with maybe a few words about myself. I'm Avishai. When I'm not planning these events with Greg and Lewis, I am a sound designer at Creator Studios, which I've recently joined, working on a new ARPG called Dwarven Realms. It's going to be released end of the month. Check it out if you want to. It's available on Steam right now. When I'm not doing that, I am a sound designer at Artlist, and I am very passionate about, as you can imagine, about technical audio stuff, game audio stuff, which kind of is the thing that drove me to organizing this event, pitching it to Greg and Lewis. And I'm very happy to have an event that's definitely focused more on the technical side, integration side, and help people that want to get into it in a cooler, smoother, funner way. Yeah, so what are we going to be talking about today? As we said before, this is going to be a pretty beginner-oriented stream, so take a look at the agenda, and if you feel like this is a little basic for you, definitely you can join us again at the second stream that I'm doing to go a bit deeper into meta sound synthesis, or join us in any of the other live talks that are going to be in this event. And but this is what we're going to do today. Essentially, we're going to open the project, look at the important parts that it contains, all the blueprints, all the events, all the variables, understand a bit better how they work, use some basic debugging techniques like print strings to a healthy extent to help you understand how the game works. We're going to actually play a real sound in the game. Nothing too interesting, pretty simple, just for technical needs of understanding. And finally, it's going to be the more maybe more complicated part of the stream. We're going to try and modulate a very simple metasound synth using one of our live parameters. We're going to use our spaceship speed to make sort of engine sound go up and down in pitch. We're going to see how this is done with metasounds. And without further ado, let's turn to our Unreal Engine project. So if you've downloaded everything from the link, as some of you I've seen have already done, which is awesome, you're going to see something similar to this. The only thing that's different is this little audio folder that I've created for this talk, but the rest is going to be exactly the same. Before we dive into the technical parts of where every blueprint is and what we're supposed to do, I'm just going to play the game and we'll just quickly talk about how it works so you'll understand what we're looking at later. So I'll run it and I'm going to full screen it so you guys can see. This is our awesome game built by John Kelleher. Incredible work. I'm loving it. Hope you do as well. We tried keeping the game very simple. So there isn't a lot of things to do. No main screen, no main menu screens, no different stages, no types of enemies. It's just you, a ship that can fly, and making asteroids explode. That's it. So a bit about controls. It's going to be W, A, S, and D. So A is left, D is right, S is down, W is up. I'm going to press the space bar to move forwards. Can navigate as I do that. Shift key is going to boost and push me forwards a lot faster. And last thing I can do with this ship is press my left mouse button to shoot some lasers. If I hold it, they're going to keep firing. If I let it go, stop. And our last interaction in the game is going to be making asteroids explode. So here's our little asteroid victim. We're going to just shoot it. You can see the little damage blinks go off. So it can get damaged. And once it takes enough damage, it will explode.
You've absolutely victimized that meteor.
Yeah, you suck, meteor. So yeah, this is everything we can do in the game. And we're going to go over exactly how this is wired up and how it functions in our blueprints. Moving on, unless there are like any questions that pop up. As we said, Greg is going to be the judge of what's important. But let's move on. We'll quickly take a look in our bottom left side at the content browser. I didn't say this before, but I'm going to assume this isn't the first time you're seeing Unreal Engine. This is not like a Unreal Engine tutorial. I'm assuming you know what's a blueprint and what's the content browser. And if there are any things that you're not really sure about, you can definitely ask them basic to advanced, no problem. And we'll try and address this as we go. But I'm taking into account that you know what Unreal Engine is. And this isn't the first time you're opening a project. So this is our content browser. On the left side, we can see everything that has to do with our project's structure. I'm going to say up front, most of it doesn't have a lot to do with you. Don't need to be concerned with it. The only places that contain blueprints and things that you want to be looking into for sure are the spaceship folder and the asteroids folder, which will handle the logic that moves and drives all the floating asteroids in our game. But we're going to start with the spaceship blueprint, which is definitely the main place where you'll be doing most of your work and implementation. So I'll just double click that to open and reveal what's inside. So from a first glance, you can see we have a lot of different variables here on the left side, but John did an amazing work with this project, made it super clear and very accessible for anyone, for audio people. All the variables and events that you're most likely going to need are shown up front on the bottom part of the event graph right here. And yeah, it's really amazing work from John. On the top area here, we have a lot of different functions that have to do with how the spaceship logic works. This shouldn't be something that you're concerned with. You can take a look if you're interested, but this is not something you'll be using unless you want to like take a deep dive into how the project works. So most of what you're going to be looking into is going to be here. I'm going to say about my project, I've just lightly modified it for the stream because I know what I'm going to do. But on your side, it's going to be looking something like this, a bit more closer together. All the comments are going to be the same, same here. So just you can take a look at my screen. The events, the names, the comments, everything's going to be the same, even though it's going to be a little different looking from your version. Yeah, so let's get into how this thing works. What we have on the bottom section here is a big list of different events. Each of these events is responsible for a different type of interaction that we have with the spaceship. A quick word about events. Events are nodes that are called in very specific situations, not like every second, every moment. We have built-in events, which some of you might have seen before. Event begin play, which launches when the blueprint is fired. We have event tick, which works every frame we get a tick when we get this event is called. So it's very good for updating constantly when you want to do something that's live and very heavily modified. And these events are custom events made by John in very specific moments. So without understanding how they work, you can't really use them. So that's what we're going to do now, understand how they work, understand the variables that we're going to be getting through them, and hopefully it'll give you a better understanding of how you want to approach your audio implementation. So starting with the first event, we're going to be going through all of them, and we're going to be using a basic debug technique. Debugging is tracking your code, understanding what it's doing, and we're going to be using a very simple but very powerful and important node called the print string node. So I'm just going to right click here. I'm going to type in print string, and we're going to get this little print string node here. And we're going to be using this a lot this stream. This is something that I'm going to do, but I really recommend that once we're done with the stream, you definitely go ahead and try this out on your side of the project to make sure that you understand everything. So what the print string node does is when it's called, it prints text on the screen and in the output log, which is right here. Just as an example, let's talk about this event for a moment. It's called unthrust change, unthrust state changed. This event is fire when our thrust state is changed, meaning when I play and I press spacebar to move forwards, it's changed to active. And when I let go of the spacebar and the spaceship stops moving forwards, it is inactive. And this is represented through this Boolean variable right here. Boolean variables are polar true or false variables, which will let us know if we are currently moving or not. And just to see this print string node in action, I'm going to go and play the game. And when I press space, you're going to see a message pop up on the top left area of my screen. You're going to see a hello message. And when I let go of my spacebar, it's going to fire a hello message once again, which means I understand how this event works, and so can you when you see the text pop up on the screen like this. But a hello message is great and polite, but it's not really informative. So I want to have something a bit more informative pop up on the screen. So what can I do? I'm going to use something called a branch node. So I'm going to just drag out this execution pin, and I'm going to type branch. And I'm going to place it here. What branch nodes do, they allow us to connect to Boolean variables and do something according to what we get. So if this Boolean is going to be true, it means I am moving forwards, I can do one thing. And if it's going to be false, I can do a different thing. And we're going to utilize this branch right now. Let's connect this variable to our branch node. And I'm going to pull out of here and look for another print string node. And now we can print different messages according to our needs. So if it's true and my thrust is active, I can say thrust started. And I can go to my bottom node and say thrust stopped. Great. I don't want to. I want to keep these messages logical and concise, not like "yo yo, I'm going" or something like that. I don't know. You want to understand when it pops on your screen what's going on. There are going to be a lot of things there if you do a lot of debugging, so keep it clear. And let's see how this behaves, just to understand it completely. So I'm going to go back to my level, press play, and once I press spacebar, I'm going to move forwards. You can see thrust started appear, and when I let go, I'm going to see thrust stopped. Great. So now I understand how this event behaves and when it fires. And this is great because if I want to have a certain sound play when I start moving or stop moving, I can do it through this event. And that's really helpful. And yeah, we're starting to understand the logic behind how these events work, and try to keep in mind what you want to do with these events at every given moment, and what sort of sounds you want to play, how you want to utilize the variables that you're receiving to more dynamically represent what's going on screen. Moving on to our next event in the movement events category, the on-forward speed changed event. This event is going to be called every time our speed changes. So this is going to be a pretty rapid changing event. And we're going to get a float here, which is a decimal number, representing how fast we're going. Let's do the same thing again. I'm going to pull out of here, look for a print string node, and I'm going to connect this float over here to my print string. And I'm going to get a conversion node, which converts this number into text that I can display on my screen, which is very helpful for debugging purposes. Without doing anything, let's just see how this looks. I'm going to press play, and let's press the space bar, and we're going to see a really intense bombardment of numbers on the left side and on our output log as well, which is very helpful, but it's a lot of data, and I want to maybe tame it a bit. So I'm going to stop my gameplay here. All of this data was true. I just want to get it in a bit more of an organized form. So I'm going to click this little arrow here on the bottom of the print string node. And what we see here is a couple of options that we get when using this node. We can change the text color. We can decide where the messages are printed. We can decide how long the messages stick on screen. And we have one option here that is really useful when doing something like printing a very rapid message called key. Key mean I want to use key here. And what key does is when I print a message on screen and it's very rapid, I can make it so that if I assign a certain key to a message, when that message is printed, it's going to overwrite the previous instance of the same message with the same key. So I will just play the game and you'll see it a lot clearer than I can explain it. Now, when I'm going to move forwards, I'm only going to get one number shown on the screen, which is way more tidy than just having a million of them on screen. And this is my real-time speed. So if you give each type of message a key, it's going to overwrite its previous message, and it's going to keep things organized and neat on the screen. Super handy. Really recommend doing that. Spoiler alert for the next part we're going to be talking about. Do look at the numbers. Try to remember what ranges we're talking about, what speed we are at, like what's our cap, where we're at. So keep that in mind. I'm going to stop this. And just to keep things neat and organized on screen, I'm going to give this a nice little color. I'm going to choose green and press OK. And then our speed message, our speed number is going to be green. And I'm going to take duration and just like put a ridiculous number on it, just so that even if my speed does stop changing, I'm still going to see this message on screen and sort of have all of my data on the left side, which is very handy when you put a key in and it overwrites itself. Cool. Moving forwards, we have on steer input changed. These are the more complicated events. The ones coming after are simpler for sure. So I'm going to be spending more time on these. Next event is on steer input changed. What does that mean? When we play the game and we use our steering keys to move the ship, we use A, W, S, and D. This sends a certain input to the engine, and and John set it up so that we can get this information and maybe modulate audio according to that, change the sound of the ship according to if we're going left or right, up or down. It's very handy to have that available. So how does it work? I want to understand it better. I mean, don't take my word for it. Try it in your own game, try it in your own environment, and see if you understand how this works. So I'm going to pull out a print string node, and we're going to use another very handy node called append. I'm going to pull out of this little string circle, and I'm going to type append in. We're going to look for string append, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect a couple of different texts together to form one line, one sort of very clear and updating line. I'll just show you how it works, and I'm sure you'll understand why this is a valuable thing to do. I'm going to add a couple of pins here because I want to connect more than 2 lines of text. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take my steer input X, and I'm going to put it here in B. And before that, I'm going to type in input X space here. And then right after that, I'm going to append that to my float. And I'm going to put NC. I'm going to put in a little space and a comma. And I'm going to type in steer. And I'm going to type in input Y and the space. And I'm going to connect my steer Y into the last node. This is going to give us a very nice and organized text print on the screen that will help us understand what we're seeing. And just to make it a bit clearer when I play it, I'm going to do the same thing here, put in a ridiculous duration, and put in new key 2, so that it doesn't override my speed messages. It's just going to override itself. And let's give it a different color as well. I'm going to give it the color yellow. Sure, yellow it is. Back to our screen, I'm going to press play. And once I'm going to press my A or D key, you're going to see something appear on the top left. So let's press A, and you can see a new message pop up. It says input X -1, input Y 0. What does that mean? My X-axis reacts to my A and D inputs. So now I'm pressing D, and you can see the number change between -1, 0, and 1 when I go right. And this is great, again, for when you want to modulate your sound according to the movement input of the ship. And I'm going to do the same with W. I'm going to get 1. Not pressing anything will give me 0, and S will give me -1. So now we have a good bit of information about how our inputs react and change when we move the ship. Great. And, combining this with the rest of the things, we can see a lot of data coming in with our ship. And now I can see my thrust stop and start behaving very differently. So let's go back and make it behave the same way. I'm just going to click this. I'm going to make the duration, again, ridiculously long. I'm going to give it the key 1. And I'm going to fix the other ones just so we can see everything clearly. Again, really long duration. 1. We're going to fix this key to 2. And this key to 3. And now when we play, we can see all of the stuff that we set up real nicely on the screen. And it's really, we're starting to get the hang of how this game's working, when every event is firing. And and this is a point where we are trying to think about how we want to implement audio in the game. Great. Going back to our blueprint. These events, I've set up print strings in advance just to kind of save time. Now, this is all the sort of knowledge I wanted to transfer to you with how to use print string nodes to their fullest. And now I'm just going to connect stuff to help you understand what these events do. So moving on to the boosting events. These 2 events have to do with our ship's boost, which is triggered by the shift key. This event is going to fire when we start boosting, and this event is going to fire when we stop boosting. So I'm just going to connect it. Same thing here. We have text that's going to be orange, and we give it a specific key. We're going to see start boost and stop boost in the relevant times. Back to the level. I'm going to play, move around, and now I'm going to press shift key, and you'll see a new message appear. Start boost and stop boost when I let go. Very straightforward, but definitely worth looking into it with your debugging tools just to make sure you understand exactly how this works, because you never know. You never know how this is going to work, really. Collision events. We're going to hit stuff with our ship. That's great. Let's connect this little node here again. What this event is going to do, it's going to show us, it's going to fire off every time we hit something in the level, that something being an asteroid, nothing else to hit. We're going to have red text different separate key for it. And we're just going to get a float from it, which will describe the collision force. So let's see this in live action. Find another little, oh, it appeared right in front of us. How convenient. Little victim asteroid. And when I'm going to hit it, you're going to see red text appear on the top left. Gonna go, and bam. Here's our number. We got 9,511. Pretty harsh. Let's try and hit another asteroid just to see if this number actually updates and doesn't just, spit out the same number every time. I'm just QAing John's work. Yep, number definitely is updating. And this is a great place for you to play like impact sounds and have them be driven by this float change in volume, or play a whole different sample according to the value of this number. Yeah, very important. Moving on, shooting lasers, important events. We have 3 events here. We have one event called on shoot lasers, which is going to fire every time we see a laser shot from the ship. We have on start shooting, which is going to start when we hold our left mouse button down. And we have on stop shooting, which is going to fire every time we release our left mouse button key. Let's see this in action. It's going to be a little different on screen. For our lasers, I didn't put a key in because I want to see like the amount of instances of lasers that we're firing. And I'm going to fire just like a little pew message. It's going to be pink. On start boosting and on stop boosting will both, they have a key, so they're going to overwrite themselves. And we're just going to see simple messages on screen for start shooting and stop shooting. And again, this is where you can implement your laser shot sound. And if you want sort of like a charge up sound for when you start shooting, and like a kind of cool down sound for when you stop shooting the lasers, you can definitely connect these over here. Let's play and see how it looks. I'm going to left click and we're going to get a little pew message. Let's move away from this asteroid. If I hold it, you're going to see a ton of pews just appear. And they're appearing and disappearing because they're on there for a short duration. But you can see the other text says start shooting lasers, which is definitely still a real thing. And when I let go of the key, it's going to turn into stop shooting lasers. And this is how these events work. And yeah, I think this is everything we have in the spaceship event. If there are any questions about that, definitely feel free to ask them. But this is everything that we can do in the spaceship blueprint. All right, moving on. I'm going to go to a different area in a content browser, the asteroids folder. And the blueprint that I'm going to be looking into is this asteroid blueprint. There are a lot of different blueprints here. This blueprint is in charge of spawning randomly the different asteroids. If you feel like you want to be adventurous and look for, the place where in this blueprint where asteroids are spawned, and like give it a little sound, cool, do that, why not? But for the most part, we're going to be doing this. We're going to be looking into this asteroid blueprint. Sick. Again, we have logic on the top section of this event graph that has to do with how the asteroids work, how they spin, what they do when they're exploding and take damage, and keep track of all of that. But because this is a very sound design oriented project, thanks to John, what we are concerned with is separated and laid out on the bottom half, which is health events. We have only 2 events here, one being on asteroid damaged, the other being on asteroid destroyed. As you can imagine, this is going to fire every time I damage an asteroid, a specific asteroid, and this is going to fire every time I destroy an asteroid. We're going to have text appear on the screen. This one's going to say asteroid damaged, and this one is going to say asteroid destroyed. And they're not going to be keyed. They're not going to last for long because we have a lot of asteroids that we're going to be shooting at and destroying. Cool. Let's play. Still got our nice little pew 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 messages, everything going on the top left. The little asteroid victim. So I'm gonna just click it once and you're gonna see some text up here on the top left, but look at how much text is gonna appear. Oop, we got 2 asteroid damage texts. What does that mean? It means that this event fires for each of the instances of the lasers being fired. So you need to take this into consideration when you're sound designing. And you wouldn't have known this if you wouldn't have debugged it yourself and looked at how this works. Because, and this is very important to take into consideration. So every time I shoot and I hit with 2 lasers simultaneously, I'm going to get 2 of these events. And when I destroy it, I'm going to get 1 asteroid destroyed message. And that is how everything works in the game. Pretty much. Again, questions, feel free. Not getting any, so I'm guessing you're all just geniuses waiting to implement audio, which is fantastic.
Currently doing great. You're explaining it fantastic, and the little question that I had for people actually is, how would you go about when you have 2 instances of lasers to say, okay, well, we don't want to shoot both at the same time?
You're asking me to answer for the people.
I mean, if you want to, we can have a discussion about it.
I don't feel like answering your questions, Greg. How would I go about that? You caught me red-handed. I'd say there are a lot of ways to go about this, but I think that one way would be to have a little counter, like a little set up a little variable that counts, and if you have, and only when it hits 2, like it's an integer, and it's gonna you're gonna add 1 to it every time you get a hit event, and only when it gets to 2, you fire your audio event, and then you bring it back to 0. So it only fires every 2 events, every 2 hits that way. Which can be problematic if you hit with only 1 laser and then all of a sudden you don't get a hit. So I definitely need to think about this one as well. But or you can just have sort of like a cooldown counter. So if you fire 2 events in succession, you can like have a cooldown gap set up with a variable in Unreal Engine, and then sort of check if that cooldown time has passed. And if it didn't, you only fire 1 event. Probably the better way to go about this. Hope this answers the question.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna mention, I love the counter idea. I didn't even think of that. I was gonna mention cooldown timers, but that's a really creative way of solving it as well. And I just want to highlight with that, there are usually a lot of different ways to do something, and it just depends on what works for this given circumstance, and also what kind of potential other issues do you run into. Because one thing that might work as a fix might create a problem later down the line, like when you have the counter potentially and you hit 1 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely agree with that. The counter idea can definitely cause problems later on, but there are like a million ways to solve the same problem. This is kind of what makes it fun, and
exactly.
I think part of what will make the event fun is seeing how you guys tackle the same problems in different ways.
Game audio is just like 3D puzzle.
Puzzles for adults.
Exactly.
Cool. So I'll keep going. Keep it going. Let's keep going. So we went over all the functionality in the project. You officially know what every event in the project that's important to sound designers does what it does. Yeah, what it does. Moving on, we're gonna actually play a real life sound in the project. Whoa, actual sounds, would have believed. But these sounds are just any sounds. They're testing sounds, and this is an important concept. When you're doing something like understanding the logic of a project, you don't want to be caught up with, is this gunshot sound good enough? Is the spaceship engine sound nice enough? I don't know, maybe I'll tweak it. And then all of a sudden you forget that the reason you came here is to understand what's going on and how. So what I have here is just like the simplest sounds possible.
Pew. Pew.
Really, this is all you need to test.
Boosting. Stopped boosting.
You can guess where each of these is going to go, I'm sure, but this is all I want for testing. I just generate text, or I have test tones, like 1,000 hertz sine wave, just I fire off from somewhere just to test that it's working. And yeah, test sounds are an important concept not to overlook. Don't get caught up in sound design when you're trying to understand logic. It's really just going to mess you up. And yeah, let's actually put these in the right places and see how the game behaves, and if it's behaving as expected. So we're going to connect a laser shot sound, and we're going to connect boosting and stop boosting sounds to the appropriate places. So you might have guessed where it is. Pretty simple. We're going to go to our laser events. On the bottom, we're going to go to on shoot lasers. Right after our print string, we're just going to pull out an execution node, play 2D sound. Very simple. I'm not going to do a 3D. I'm not going to get into attenuation now. I'm just making sure this trigger works. We're going to, from the dropdown, select our appropriate sound, which is pew. I can send these samples to anyone later if you want them. And we're already going to connect our other sounds as well, which are boost start and boost stop. So I am copying, Control C, copying this node, and I'm going to paste it up top in our movement events, no, boosting events. That's right. On start boosting, going to drag out a pin here. And, I said I'm going to paste, so I will paste. Click here, Control V to paste. And I'm just going to connect it, switch the sound to our boosting audio. And I'm going to paste this here, drag again the execution pin. And I'm going to select stop boosting from this drop down. Now we're going to go back to the game, and hopefully we're going to hear our lovely sounds fire at the appropriate times. So hope you're ready for this.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, this is very Windows 95-ish audio experience, but hey, it works. And it works as we expected it to, which is great news. And now we're going to test our little boost sound. So I'm going to press Shift.
Boosting.
And I'm going to go.
Stopped boosting.
Lovely. Everything is functioning as expected. It's really important to test these things to see how audio reacts to events, even though you think you understand them. So, take your time, understand how the game works, and it will pay off when you look into integrating sounds. Let's hear it all together.
Boosting. Pew, 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 pew. Stop boosting. Pew, pew.
Lovely. This is going to be like #1 winning admission, just so you know. I hope you do better than this. Cool. So we did that. Let's remove them because they are terribly annoying. Thank you. Goodbye, nodes. And moving on to our last part, which is going to be modulating a very simple meta sound synth using our speed parameter. I'm going to go to my audio folder, which I've created in advance. And I'm going to open this meta sound source that I've created, which is going to play the sound that I've created. This is in no way a meta sounds introduction stream. I'm not expecting you to understand exactly what's going on here and exactly what every nodes do. Just having like the most basic synthesis understanding will just get you through this. What I'm going to try and demonstrate here is just live updating a parameter, a sound using a given parameter. You can do this in meta sounds. You can do this using a normal sample and just alter its pitch. You can do it with like Wise RTPCs. You could do it with Fmod. You could do it however you want. I want you to see live how I'm taking a sound, and I'm gonna change it over time in correspondence to how the game is behaving, how the speed is changing. All right. So what I have here, very simple. I have a sine wave generator and just like volume control. And I have a frequency knob, an input here that I've set up. And I'm going to press play here, and you're going to just hear a sine wave. And as I move this knob, it's going to change in pitch. This isn't a very convincing engine sound, but again, I just want to try and make something work. It's the equivalent of playing the pew 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 sound. It's just making sure everything's kind of wired up the way I expect it to and works the way I want it to without getting my head into sound design. So this is all I have here. And what I'm going to try and do is access this variable, this input from my spaceship blueprint, and modulate it live according to my speed. All right. So let's get that done. I'm going to go to my spaceship blueprint, and I want to play a sound from this blueprint, and I want to do it using a component and not just like fire it off here. A component, for anyone that isn't sure, is something that I can attach to my blueprint actor. It doesn't have to be an actor, but it's a part of the blueprint that has certain functionality. I have a camera a camera component that will allow me to see an image in the game. It's going to give me my perspective. I have the static mesh component, which if I go to the viewport, you can see this is the static mesh component, which is in charge of the physical representation of my spaceship. There are loads of different types of components, but what I want right now is an audio component. So I'm going to press add here to add a new component, and I'm going to type in audio. And it's going to give me an audio component. And what's here is MSS Engine is the meta sound source that I've created. It's telling me like, hey, dude, I can make you this component and already assign this meta sound source to it. You want that? And I'm like, sure, I do. So I'm going to click that. You can always unassign it later, but I'm going to click it and assign it. And I'm going to call this AC underscore engine. AC stands for audio component. This is a good practice to name your different blueprints, components this way with like the letters that represent what this is. And then if you just search them out in your content browser, you'll understand what you're seeing and where. So definitely a good habit to have. I'm going to try and attach this to my so annoying. It's always trying to define it as my root component, and I don't want that. I want to drag it over here and get the other actions window. Come on, Unreal Engine. Don't be like this. Don't be like that. Oh, just can't make it work. Screw it. I'm going to just leave it here. Ideally, I'd want to attach my audio component to my root component, but for some reason, it's not letting me do it right now, and I am not going to spend more time on it. So I'm just going to leave it here for now. So I'm going to go into this component, and I'm going to go here on the right side. There are a lot of different options that you can alter with this blueprint, like attenuation and all sorts of parameters that you can play around with to make the sound behave the way you do. I'm just going to play a very simple 2D sound here. I'm going to mess around with anything besides making sure that in the sound tab, I'm going to select my meta sound source, and that will make this sound play when I start playing the game. So if I go back to my level, I'm going to press play, and you're going to hear this lovely sine wave tone playing. Great, so this is working. Now I want to modulate this tone using some logic in my blueprint of the spaceship. So let's go back to the event graph, and I'll go to, I'm sure you can imagine what event we're going to. We're going to go to our on speed changed event. Nope. On forward speed changed. Great. So I'm going to keep this print string here handy because we are going to want to look at our speed. It's going to be important very soon. Move away, little node. And what I want to do here is as such. I'm going to drag out my audio component onto my event graph because I want to refer to it when I make this current change. I want to affect the sound that's playing through that component specifically. And what I want to do is I'm going to drag out from this little area. I'm going to type in set float parameter. What that's going to do is going to allow me to access a parameter in the sound that's playing in this little component and change it in runtime every time this event is called. All right. So I'm going to pull this up, connect these nodes. And I will say up front, maybe this isn't the most scalable, best practice coding thing to do, but I'm really just trying to do something simple here and adjust this parameter using this node. So what does this node require? It requires my component to be connected here. It requires a name for a variable and a float because I said I want to set a float parameter. So let's go get the name of the parameter we want to alter, which is this guy. I'm gonna copy this name. Don't try and respell it and just like spell it out from your brain because you're gonna make a mistake and then it's gonna be, why is this working? Just save that part and copy paste every time you need to copy paste, place in a very specific variable's name. Just copy paste it. Very important. And into this node, I'm going to connect my forward speed variable. Whoa, too much down. And I'm going to double click on this line to make a reroute node just to keep it a bit more organized. I don't like lines to overlap different nodes and like keeping things a bit more organized. And yeah, let's play. And a word of warning, I'm going to do a very, very, very small boost, and you're going to hear something go up and pitch very quickly. Isn't that like the lamest engine rev you've ever heard? Yeah, so our engine sound is going up in pitch way too fast. Wonder if you can think about why that is. Yeah, I'm just going to tell you why that is. You remember looking at the speeds of the spaceship? I'm just going to, for a moment, unassign our little event here so we can talk and see the game run in silence. I'm going to clear this and run our game. Let's full screen this so it'll be easier to see. Let's look at the speed parameter number on the top left. What happens is I was assigning this number to modulate my frequency, and as we all know, it's not a pleasant experience listening to 7,000, 9,000, 10,000 hertz sine wave. It doesn't represent the low end experience you'd expect from a sci-fi engine. We want to keep it in this low range. And to do that, we need to understand the limits and boundaries of the speed of our spaceship. This is not something that's in the documentation. It's not written anywhere. This is stuff that we've left for you to figure out. You need to understand the behavior of the game to implement audio properly. And this is the first step towards doing that. I'm just going to keep going forwards. And as you can see on the top left, the green number, it has a sort of ceiling. Like, it's not a hard ceiling because this is a physics-based game, but it's not going to go past 12,000. It's really dancing around 11,000 right now. I'd say 12,000 is definitely the peak of my speed when I'm going in like regular thrust mode. Okay, so do keep that in mind. And let's see where our like top speed ceiling is. So I'm going to press Shift. And let's look at the numbers go up. And I saw a 22,000, 24. Whoa, that's crazy. So I saw like 24,000, but it's mainly, hit the asteroid. It's mainly dancing around 22,000, 24,000, I'd say is the maximum. And this is very important to keep in mind when we're doing something like a dynamic implementation like this. So with that in mind, let's go back to our blueprint. Gonna shrink this down, go back to our blueprint. And this is the last thing we're gonna do, so I hope you're still hanging in there with me. Let's move this a little forward. And last thing we're gonna do here is remap this value. And what does remap mean? I'm gonna drag out of this little float node here, and I'm gonna type in map range clamped. Clamped means it's not gonna, we'll talk about what that means in a moment. Map range clamped. What does this node do? I want to turn the numbers that I'm getting into different numbers. And this node allows me to define a range of input values that I want to turn into a range of output values, which allows me to, let's say, when I am static at 0 speed, I want this to be the same equivalent to 100 hertz because my engine is going to be on. I want to hear it, but I want the base frequency to be 100. So when I'm immobile, I have 0 speed. I want that to be the equivalent of 100. Okay, so in range A is going to be 0, and that's going to be the equivalent of out range 100. Okay. And I'm going to do the same for the other area of the range. So in range B means the maximum value that I'm going to be getting here. As we saw, it's around 25,000. I'm going to give it like the higher area just to be safe. I'm going to turn 0 to 25,000 into numbers that correspond to 100 to 600. So every time I'm going to get 0, it will be 100. And when I get 25,000, it's going to be converted to 600 in float. And this is something very, very handy that you'll be using all around the project because different sound design needs are going to require different types and ranges of input data. And just to see how this is represented, I'm going to print string once again. Let's print string before we alter our sound. And I'm going to put this number in here. And I'm going to give it a different key. Let's say 10. duration is going to be pretty long. Again, doesn't matter. And text color, let's make it bright blue. And we're going to see two numbers on screen now. We're going to see the green number, which is going to be our actual speed. And we're going to see the output float, which is going to be our remapped range. Okay. And this range is what we want to stick into this set float parameter node. All right. I'm going to compile this. And I'm going to go back to my level, press play. And now, oh yeah, it's silent because we detached our sound. I'm going to go back to the component, select my meta sound source, compile again, and play. This time we should hear a sound. Great. And now we're going to see two numbers on the top left, and hopefully we're going to hear a more appropriate sound for our engine. Great. So in green, you can see our actual speed value. And in blue under it, you can see the value that we got out of our remap node, which is super important. And this is what allows us to stay in decent ranges here. I'm going to boost. It's a little unstable, but yeah, I mean, now we're moving around and it definitely corresponds to the way the spaceship is moving on screen, right? Like I'm moving forwards, getting pitch shifted, I'm boosting, getting higher pitch. Yeah, definitely corresponding to how the ship is behaving right now, which is great. And yeah, that concludes our stream. I hope that this made it clearer for you how this project works, gave you a couple of tools for you to use for debugging, understanding the game's behavior. And as I said before, I really, really encourage you to do this on your side just to get like a super solid understanding of how the game works. Because when you go into an actual game, developers aren't really going to be that specific with how things work, and you need to develop the skill of understanding how a game works just by trial and error and debugging. So definitely a great skill to hone and practice.
That
Yeah,
was
that's it.
really, really awesome. We have actually a question.
Yeah, I'm back on chat, so definitely here
we
go.
have a question from Aha Sounds. Is the listener position on the camera here?
I believe it is. I believe it is. Yeah, I believe so. I did not look at it, but I think it is on the camera. But hey, don't take my word for it. Look for it. I mean, this is like,
check it out.
Yeah,
Dive in.
I mean, look at it.
Get your hands dirty.
It might not be here, but there might be like a default setting for it. But yeah, check it out on your own. Like, don't take my word for it.
The other thing, of course, is am I taking notes? Yes, I have taken notes. I'm well equipped, John. Thank you. And again, huge shout out to John, who has provided this incredible project for us to use. So yeah, really, really awesome.
You're gonna see this in like 30% of show reels moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. On top of that, just a last point, the engine was stuttering a bit at the end and going like woo woo.
Yeah.
This is so fun in game audio, and also like the bane of game audio is you create something and it's like it works almost.
Yeah, it almost works.
So how do we get the last 10%? And then that's the challenge here. In this case, I'm gonna throw in a keyword like volume smoothing, maybe. And why is there something called slew rate? So yeah, it's like it's interesting because when you're having these issues, I think the first challenge is to even understand like how am I gonna ask about this problem? How can I describe this problem in the first place? And that leads us to, if you have any problems, any struggles, if you are if you've hit a point like can't really do this, then simply go and check out the tournament hub, which you can find airwiggles.com/c/tournament-hub. Or just go on airwiggles.com, scroll down, it's on the left sidebar in the space. And there's loads of awesome people in there who will be able to help you out. And for the people that help out, there's even prizes that we supply. We have 5 prizes, 200 euros in store credit for We Love Indies to get some cool bundles. So definitely help each other out it's like not just cool, but also you can get some.
It's
awesome
worth
gear.
money.
Yeah, exactly. External
amazing.
incentives.
Yes.
Anyways, I think there were no further questions, I believe. So yeah, thank you so much, Avishai, for this incredible rundown. It's been super informative, and good luck, everyone, with the tournament.
Yeah,
I'm
good
very
luck.
excited to see your results, and we'll be judging them on.
One day.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have a date yet, but the tournament ends on the 9th of
Someday.
October. So
Maybe
after
after
that,
that, someday.
shortly after that. And there will be a live element involved as well. So it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time, as we always do. So yeah,
Indeed.
thanks again. And apologies for the technical difficulties at the start. Yeah, new software. Gotta have some problems, right?
We
Anyways,
did it.
have a wonderful morning, day, evening, everyone, wherever you're at in the world, and a very wiggly day. And thanks again, Avishai.
Yes, wiggly day to you all. Goodbye.
Bye.